Welcome back to a timey-wimey pod where we watch every episode of Doctor Who from 2005 onwards. My name's Rebecca.
I'm Haley.
And today we are talking about Dot and Bubble, which aired May 31st, 2024, and was written by Russell T Davies and directed by Dylan Holmes William, who also directed last week's episode, 73 Yards.
Yes, and fun fact, me and Rebecca actually watched this episode right next to each other in person.
We got to watch it together, which doesn't happen very often.
No, I was thinking about it the other night and I was like, I think the last time we watched like a new live episode of Doctor Who together in person was Deep Breath.
No, didn't we watch the finale of Series 8 together?
Oh, wait. We might have. But needless to say, it's been a while. And so that was really fun.
It was fun.
It was kind of hard, though, because we wanted to talk about it. And we talked about it just like a little bit, but we didn't like get into it at all because we were saving it for the episode.
Gotta save it for the pod.
Yes, we do. It was fun, though, because we had live reactions and we were shouting.
Yes.
At the screen.
Yes.
Lots of yelling.
Lindy. Lots of anger. Lots of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So we're changing things up a little bit this week. This week, Haley has the fantastic facts. Are you ready to share them?
I am ready. I have quite a few.
I'm ready.
The first fantastic fact I have is that Russell T Davies, all the way back in 2010, proposed it to Stephen Moffat, the then showrunner of Doctor Who, but it was shelved for budgetary concerns. And I just find that really interesting. And I'm really curious if the racism aspect of the story would have been present or not.
I'm guessing that was something that came along later when they, returned to the idea and wrote the script. But it would have been interesting to see what this episode would have been. Instead of Ruby and the 15th Doctor, it would have been Amy and the 11th Doctor.
Yeah, I wonder as well because, Russell is the showrunner, so he has a lot of creative control. And I'm just so curious, would he have had that same amount of creative control if this premiered during Moffat's run?
I know. I wonder what a RTD episode with Moffat as the showrunner would have looked like. Because we've had a lot of Moffat episodes under the helm of Russell T Davies, but never the other way around.
No, that would have been really interesting. My next fantastic fact is that, as with the previous episode, 73 Yards, the Doctor's presence is greatly reduced because Ncuti Gatwa had prior filming commitments during the time 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble were filmed because they were assigned to the first filming block to accommodate his schedule.
Dang, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's why we kind of have two Doctor Light episodes in a row. And I mean, I saw some people online talk about how Dot and Bubble wasn't a Doctor Light episode. I disagree. It's a Doctor Light episode.
It is a Doctor Light episode. Not in the same way that last week's episode or Turn Left is Doctor Light, but it's still a Doctor Light episode.
The next fantastic fact is that the titles considered for this episode, besides Dot and Bubble, were IRL and Monsters Everywhere. I personally think Dot and Bubble was a good choice. I really like how that sounds.
I agree, though I do kind of like Monsters Everywhere, but I think they went with the right choice.
I do like Monsters Everywhere as well, and I think it would be fitting, but would it spoil the twist?
Maybe. It might have.
My last fantastic fact is that the aliens of this episode are called man-traps. This was revealed in the Doctor Who Unleashed companion episode. This is the only information I have from the Doctor Who Unleashed episode.
Man-traps. That is hilarious.
I know. It made me laugh.
Well, thank you so much for those fantastic facts.
You are welcome.
Are you ready to jump into the episode?
Yes, I am.
I feel like we can't really talk about this episode without first talking about the ending, because once you see the ending, everything else makes sense. Because through this whole
Mhm.
episode, we are following Lindy Pepper-Bean. And when you're first watching it, I at least when I first watched it, I noticed like I was like, why are we following around this horrible, this mean character? Like she's so obnoxious, like she's rude to everyone. She's rude to the doctor. She's rude to Ruby. She calls the doctor stupid. She says she hates him. At one point, when she's talking to her friends, she calls them criminals and all this stuff, and it doesn't make sense when it's happening. It's like, why is she so aggressive? And then you get to the ending and you realize why.
Yeah. And in retrospect, watching the episode a second time, everything is a lot more obvious.
Definitely.
But the first time I was watching this episode, I definitely, for lack of a better phrase, I was in my own bubble. Like, because I wasn't really looking for any, really digging into any of the comments, I really didn't think too much about it. There were a few statements that Lindy said to the doctor where I'm like, okay, where's this coming from? Like, what's going on? Why is she so like abrasive towards the doctor and Ruby, but specifically the doctor? And again, like you said, once you see the ending, all of it clicks and it makes sense. And it's kind of, for me at least, was very much like a duh moment. I'm like, how did I not see all of
Hmm.
these things building up to what the end would be?
I do think the ending is meant to shock the audience. You know, we're meant to go along just thinking she's just rude or just
Mm-hmm.
unlikable. And at first, when you're watching it, you're like, at least I was, I'm like, why are we stuck with this such an unlikable person as our main
Mm-hmm.
protagonist? And then the ending, it just makes so much sense because this wouldn't have worked if we're watching this episode from the perspective of Ruby and the doctor. It only works from Lindy's perspective because she's our protagonist. We are naturally drawn to want to trust our protagonist. And then as we go along, we see her be rude, we see her be mean, we see her not able to walk, and which
Yeah.
all just which all of that makes her really unlikable. And then at the end, you're kind of hit like, oh, you're not just a rude, spoiled rich kid. You think you're better solely because of your race.
Yeah. And watching Shooty's performance and his
Mhm.
response to that as the doctor.
Shudi plays that scene so
Mm-hmm.
well. At first, they reject him to save them, and he still wants to help. He still says, "I don't care what you think. It doesn't matter. Just let me save you." Because that's who the doctor is. That's what the doctor does. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
pick, who gets to live or die, even if they're good or bad, but they still won't let him save them. And we've never seen that before. And it was really powerful. And the acting from Shuchi in the scene was heartbreaking. I love when he goes from laughing to screaming to crying. And
Mm-hmm.
Millie's acting is really good too. Her just kind of standing there, frustrated and feeling helpless and trying to comfort the doctor. And you see her walk away at the end, and she's so defeated and she's so upset.
Yeah, and Russell in the behind the scenes video of Dot and Bubble on the Doctor Who YouTube channel, he mentioned that he kept getting the question of like, what are you gonna do? Like, how are you gonna address racism going into the past with Shooty as the 15th Doctor? And his response was this episode and also saying, okay, but like, who's to say racism is stuck in the past?
I really liked that idea too, because you knew they were going to have to address it. This is the first black actor to portray the Doctor. Well, no, Joe Martin was technically, but this is like our first full-fledged Doctor
Yeah.
that is a person of color, and you knew they were going to have to address that somehow. And choosing to address it in this futuristic landscape is so much more interesting than addressing it in what we expected, which
Yeah.
being in the past. So I really like that idea.
Me too. I feel like it's more impactful too because this was an episode in the future, kind of forcing us to think that, oh, these little things that we may perceive as little really aren't little in the grand scheme of things.
Definitely. I really like the setting of Find Time and how that plays into the story, because it's this world where everyone is 17 to 27 and they only work 2 hours a day and then party the rest of the day. And everything is colorful and everything is pastel. And you have your little bubble and you can talk to your friends and everything seems great. And then you realize the bubble is actually detrimental to society, and the Dot has learned to hate all these people, and that's why it grew the slugs or the man eaters to attack everyone and eat them.
Yeah, and I I just want to share like my thought process and kind of like my varied reaction when I first watched this episode. I went from being like, "Oh, this is visually like so beautiful and aesthetic.
Mhm.
I love this. Like I want to see more," to criticizing the whole dot and bubble thing because at the beginning of this episode I very much thought it was like an older man's commentary on social media and
Mhm.
iPad kids. But then as we continued in the episode, it's like there's Lindy. And I feel like a lot of times with the protagonists, you want to root for them and you want to see like their character arc, even if they're in a one episode. And so at first, you're like, okay, what's one thing I can root for Lindy for? And it was really hard to find that one thing to root for her. And then you just get more and more frustrated with her. And then you realize she's awful. And then you realize she betrays literally everyone. And then you
Mhm.
realize she's so self entitled and so in her own bubble that anyone outside of her bubble isn't allowed in, like the Doctor. And it just starts off as this very beautiful world that draws you in, that you want to stay in. And at the end, it's like, okay, appearances aren't everything.
She's not even a good person or friend to the people inside her
No.
bubble. She murders and betrays Ricky September, which we will talk all about, but she also
Mm-hmm.
ignores Gothic Paul when he's talking about their friends missing. And right before Cooper Mercy dies, she says, like, she hears something, and Lindy just ignores her, doesn't even check in. So she doesn't even really care about the people in her bubble.
No, she doesn't. And yeah, I'm going to refrain from going on like a rant about Lindsay because I think we've really hit a lot of the points and everyone watching the
Hmm.
episode just knows how unlikable she truly is and I don't need to talk about it even more really, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the pole, that the fact that she can't walk without the arrows, I thought that was just ridiculous. And then on reflection and rewatch, you realize it's a consequence of her own bubble, and her just being safely inside this bubble. It's means she doesn't think for herself. She doesn't live for herself. She doesn't even move for herself. She has to have something telling her when to move, telling her how to walk. And it's just an example of how our own bubbles and echo chambers just trap us.
Yeah, and I mean Lindy is in her dot and bubble all the time.
Mhm.
And when we meet Ricky September, he's like, "You want to hear something crazy? Like, I dropped some songs and then I just like disconnect from the dot and bubble." And Lindsay's like, "Oh my gosh, what? That's so crazy."
He says like he tried to warn people about the slugs, but they weren't listening to him and his videos were getting deleted.
No, that wait, they were getting deleted. I don't. I missed that.
Yes, he says There's at one point when he first meets Lindy that he says he tried to warn people, but his videos were getting deleted.
Oh, interesting. I do think, though, a little bit about Ricky's character that I at least noticed. I don't know if anyone else did. Like you said, he mentioned he reads and he reads history and he's not in his like bubble. He's not in his bubble the whole time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, not to say he's like that stellar of a person, because we don't know the full like scope of him. He got killed off. Like we don't know.
Yeah.
But he is like, he's helping Lindy. He's saying, I've read history, I know about things, and that's what's important.
And you're right, we don't fully know the extent of his character, but we also see when he's talking to the Doctor and Ruby, he's not as disagreeable as Lindy is. He's not as apprehensive or scared of them. Like he's just like, "Hi guys, like I know I can do the numbers." And I just love how both Ruby and the Doctor love Ricky. I think that was so funny. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, we don't get to know a lot about him, but we do get to see, because we know he doesn't spend all his time in the bubble, and he reads, and he's more welcoming to the Doctor and Ruby than Lindy was.
Yeah, he also knows how to walk on his own.
Mhm. Not run into a pole. Also, can we talk about how when she first meets Ricky and hugs him, that's her first hug ever?
Yeah, which is so interesting.
Hmm.
I don't remember. I'm sure it said somewhere on the. Actually, I don't know if it ever said like how old she is. She's at least between the ages of 17 and 27.
Hmm.
Say she got there at 17. She hadn't had a hug in 17 years.
Yeah, not from her mother, who we meet, Penny Pepper-Bean, played by no other than Susan Twist.
Which at this point, I mentioned this to Rebecca. I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast before. My prediction is that Susan Twist is kind of entered, I don't know if she's entered a timeline per se, but if you guys remember in like it's the name of the doctor, right? When
Yes.
Clara jumps in. Okay. In the name of the doctor in series 7, when Clara jumps into the doctor's time stream, and that explains all the different versions of Clara that we see throughout the show. I feel like that's going to be very similar to Susan Twist, and that's why she's acting like a new person each time. And like she doesn't recognize the Doctor and Ruby. I think she's jumped in a time stream or something like that. That's my prediction. But it is really odd that she's Lindy Pepper-Bean's mother, because I don't think she's her true mother.
I'm A part of me is giving up on the theories and predictions, because I'm like, everything we learn about this character, the less I understand, the less that makes sense. Part of me wonders if she's not like an AI spying on them, like she's purposely
Oh.
trying to get intel on the Doctor and Ruby, and that's why she keeps popping up, and maybe she doesn't know that's what she is. I don't know.
I don't know either. All I do know is that Russell T Davies completely lies, because did you
Yes.
hear his response that he's like, we had a shortage of actors, so that's why you keep seeing the same actor as Susan Twist.
Mhm.
And yeah, rule number 1, Russell T Davies lies.
Yes.
I don't remember what he's lied about before, but I know he has.
I'm sure he has.
I mean, technically Moffat didn't lie. He just didn't tell the full truth about coming back as a Doctor Who writer. So like, when it comes to writers of Doctor Who, showrunners of Doctor Who, they're not squeaky clean when it comes to telling the truth.
Which is fine. I don't mind being lied to
Oh,
keep the
me either.
surprise.
Me
Which
either. I
I
just
kind
thought
of
it was
like.
really funny.
I even like in trailers when they like edit things to make it look like one thing, but it's not. Marvel used to do that a lot. They would edit their trailers to look like characters were there, and then the movie would come out, and you're like, and the characters weren't there. And I kind of like that. I kind of like being tricked in order to keep the surprise. But I'll tell you what, we're going to find out soon because we only have 3 episodes left.
I can't deal. I can't deal with that thought right now. That's
Yeah.
too painful because then we have to wait until Christmas for another episode, and then we have to wait until 2025.
I know. Probably spring again, which I understand why they had to do these 2 Dr. Light episodes because of Shuti Gatwa's filming schedule. But only having 8 episodes for his first season, and 2 of them he's not even really around most of the time. I just want more. And Ruby and 15 are so great. I love their dynamic. I'm obsessed, but I just want more. Like, just give us more, please.
Me too. I want more TARDIS scenes, and
Yes.
I want like the conversation where even if they reference like adventures off screen, that's totally fine. Just like build it out. Have conversations at the beginning of the episode instead of just like popping up somewhere.
Mhm. I
Like I
agree.
just want some of that.
There's been a lot of just kind of popping up, like, and boom, we were
Yeah.
just on the planet. In 73 yards, we were just kind of in Wales suddenly. In this episode, they just kind of show up in Lindy's bubble. And I want to see, like, why are we here? How did we get here? What's happening? And that happened in the 60th too. For the 14th Doctor at the beginning of Starbeast just kind of shows up in Donna's town. And we don't really get an
Yeah.
explanation. So bring back TARDIS scenes.
Please. Oh my gosh. My favorite was like during 11's run and like
Mm-hmm.
him and the ponds and the river and then some of them are talking secretly and it was just so fun.
And in that beautiful TARDIS.
I do love that orange TARDIS.
Me too.
I do want to give out a shout out to Gothic Paul. Even though he was probably also racist and very problematic, he was at least a real one for asking where all the missing people were.
He tried. He was in his true crime podcaster era, but no one was listening to him.
And he ultimately got killed by Mantrap, a man-eater, and Lindy didn't care. She
No,
didn't care
she
about anyone.
did
We've
not
already talked
care.
about this.
Even when she found out her mom died, she didn't even care that much.
Which is just like, girl, what do you mean? That's when I really knew. I'm like, oh, you're not just an awful person. You're literally a sociopath.
Yeah, you only care about yourself.
Yeah. I find it really, I don't even know what the word is, but I kind of find it funny that Ricky's September song is yellow, yellow polka dot bikini.
Like we said, Haley and I watched this episode together, and we could not stop singing.
We couldn't.
It's my favorite musical moment of the whole season.
And we've had a lot of musical moments too.
Yeah.
I agree. I remember being sung this song as a kid by someone. Yeah. Maybe it was a song I picked up, actually. I don't quite fully remember. But yeah, that was kind of funny. And I'm like, is Ricky September claiming he wrote this song? Like, what's the lore there?
I know that is funny.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a cover.
Or he was just doing dances like a TikTok dancer.
Exactly.
The amount of times turn left is said in this episode.
Oh, and it's insane.
It's insane. Like the thing telling Lindy how to walk only says turn right like twice. Every other time it's turn left. And it probably wasn't intentional at all, but maybe it was because maybe Russell wanted to be annoying and reference turn left.
Maybe he just wanted us to think that it meant something. I think he just likes to mess with us.
I think he does too. I think he just likes to have really random Easter eggs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, did you notice that in one of the beginning scenes when one of the slugs is killing someone, that the Find Time people, they have green blood?
I did notice that. What does that mean? Because that's confusing.
I have no clue.
Yeah. I also really found the idea interesting that they're kept away from the wild woods, from outside the city. And then when everything with the slugs is happening, now they're going to go pioneer and discover, and they say even trap and take over whatever's out there.
Yeah, which they're just gonna die. They're
Yeah.
just gonna turn up dead.
We need to talk about the scene where Ricky dies, because they finally
Ugh,
realize it's going in alphabetical order, because the slugs were created by the dot to kill people, and they're going in alphabetical order. And for really no reason at all, like, she didn't have to throw Ricky under the bus like that. She exposes him and says
no.
that his real surname is Coombs, and his reaction where he when he just says Lindy, and oh, it's so sad, and he's
Yeah.
immediately taken out.
Also, I'm sorry. He literally helped her, taught her how to walk.
He taught her how to walk, literally.
He kept her safe. He like helped her make their way to like her way to the conduit. He was helping her put in the code. He was literally fighting off the dot because we learned that the dot became sentient and created the slugs to kill the people because the dot was like, these people are awful and annoying and I'm tired of hearing them. So like I want to murder them all slowly to annoy them
Yeah.
and terrify them. But like he was literally fighting off the dot and she betrays him
Mhm.
after all he did.
No. I was so mad when that happened.
Oh, I
I'm
was
still
so
upset.
mad.
Justice for my man Ricky September.
Justice for you, Ricky. You would have been a great companion.
Ugh.
Also, he found out the homeworld was completely destroyed and didn't tell Lindy
Yeah.
to protect her feelings. And she still did what she did. And then
Mhm.
she has the nerve, the gall, to tell Hoochie Pie when she asks him where Ricky is, like, oh, you know, he went back to help save more people. He was so
He was
brave.
so brave. No, he
Uh,
wasn't. You killed
excuse me?
him.
You literally killed him. You killed him.
And she just lies about it so effortlessly.
Yeah.
Another thing
Trash.
is, when Lindy and the others are talking about the homeworld being gone, they're not even that sad, but Ricky's face when he sees that it's gone and the
Mm-hmm.
slugs ate everyone, it's so sad. It's heartbreaking. His reaction is really well done, and it just again shows that he's different from everyone else in Fine Time.
Yeah.
I love that we finally got to see the Doctor and Ruby's outfits at the end of this episode, because those
Mm-hmm.
outfits were the first outfits we saw of them in their characters. I so clearly remember them in those outfits next to like a trailer, and that was like the only photo we had for the longest time. And I was waiting for that orange sweater to come back, and it finally did.
Yeah. We only got like a snippet of it in the church on Ruby Road for like 10 seconds.
Hmm.
And I love this outfit a lot. It looks really great on Shooty. And I really hope we see more of it. I think we will. I hope we will.
I really want Ruby's sweater, so if anyone finds it, let me know.
They both looked great in this episode. And I will say, like, the styling of like everyone in Fine Time and the makeup
Hmm.
and the aesthetic, visually very beautiful. And I really, really like it.
Oh, I love Lindy's outfit. Even though it's like
Mm-hmm.
a mix between a blazer and a robe, which is really funny, but I love it. And I love everyone's like weird, colorful pastel outfits. It's really fun.
Same. Something interesting that I am questioning. I don't know if this was a slip from Russell T Davies. I don't know if this was like intentional. I don't know if this means the doctor remembers the actual word, but instead of saying anti Mav, he says anti grav.
Hmm. I'm guessing it was like a slip up, but it is
I
kind of
think
funny.
so.
Will we hear Mavity again? Who knows?
I think we will. I feel like they wouldn't build up everything with Mavity up until now and they just have it not go anywhere.
Yeah, I think it has to lead to something. Can we talk about more about all the moments where Lindy is just so mean to the doctor for no reason? There's so many points where he's being so nice and he's trying to encourage her and be like, you can do it and we're here to help. And she calls him condescending and rude. And
Tells
she,
him to stop treating her like a child, which he wasn't.
yes. And
And
when they're first telling her about the slugs, she assumes it has something to do with him.
yeah, not to mention, this was the line that, watching it a second time, this line did stand out to me the first time, where I was thinking a little bit like, oh, that sounded really not great. It was the line where she said, guys, like to all of her close friends, guys, I promise he's not as stupid as he looks.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that was bad.
What did you just say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even when she realizes, oh, didn't I block you? I thought you just all looked alike. Like, oh my gosh.
No words.
No
No
words.
words. If I could punch her through the screen, I would.
Me too.
Yeah. Lindy, she got what she deserved in the end, which
Mm-hmm.
is, although part of me is like, what are the chances they survive? But no, I think
Zero.
they
They
died.
can't even walk without the bubble.
You know what? You're so right.
Mm-hmm.
They won't be
And
able to charge their bubbles.
and without
The
mommy and
slugs are
daddy
still
on the
coming
home
for them.
world, they're really gonna be screwed.
Yeah. Because the way that, like, not just Lindy, but all of, like, the refugees at the end treat the doctor and talk to him
When
is awful.
Hoochie Pie, she calls the TARDIS voodoo, and then the guy
Yeah.
says, "Turn away, ladies. You'll be contaminated." Like, ugh.
Uh,
It's disgusting.
so disgusting.
Yeah.
In conclusion, with this episode, I do think it's a really impactful episode, and it's one that's made me think pretty deeply and really re examine basically every interaction and everything that happened in this episode. And I think it was written really well. I like it a lot more the second time I watched it. The first time, I will say, like, it wasn't my favorite. I think that had more to do though with the Doctor Light aspect of it more than anything, because watching it for the second time, I really appreciated the entire plot
Hmm.
and the twist even more. And like I said, it's a really impactful episode.
I agree. Watching it a second time when you understand what's going on, it's so much more powerful. And I did like this episode way more going than I expected. Going into it, I had very low expectations. So
Same.
this episode and the messaging and the twist, it all really surprised me. And I did enjoy it a lot. Though again,
Same.
the fact that it is the Dr. Light episode is kind of a downside for me. And I don't mind Dr. Light episodes. Like, we loved 73 Yards. We love Turn Left. We love Blink. But again, I just want more in Shuchi. I want more Millie. Give it to me.
I fully agree.
Do we have any Reddit comments for this episode?
Yes, we do. User future Doctor We Know this on the Doctor Who subreddit said one of the things in their comment, they said Ricky September changed his name, indicating he wasn't born wealthy and explaining why he isn't as useless as everyone else, and she had no issue sacrificing him. This girl is the literal worst.
Mm-hmm.
User downtown underscore agent 3323 on the Doctor Who subreddit said, I really wanted all these obnoxious people to die. I'm surprised I'm getting my wish, but I'm not complaining.
Honestly.
All right, this comment, I do have some thoughts in response to it.
Oh.
User David F. Tyler on the Doctor Who subreddit said, this was so Water of Mars coded and I loved it. The end was
Oh.
very Time Lord victorious, only to have the people refuse to be saved. Might be my favorite episode so far.
The Waters of Mars comparison is very interesting. It's not quite Time Lord Victorious. That is I mean, in that episode, the doctor's faced with he wants to save people, but he can't, and then decides to do it anyway. Consequences be damned. But in this episode, the doctor wants to save people, but he can't. And the people he's trying to save won't let him.
Yeah, I don't know if Waters of Mars is really a good comparison, just because I feel the people in Waters of Mars chose not to be saved by the doctor because they knew the ramifications time wise. They knew that it would have implications for the future, and they did it for a tragic but a solid like reason, where the people in this episode in Dot and Bubble did it because they're bigots and
Yeah.
racists.
And the people in Waters of Mars, they didn't even know they're. Well, this is just going to become us talking about Waters of Mars. Ugh, which I can't wait to talk about because that's an episode.
That's one of the episodes of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we should probably suspend continuing to talk about the Waters of Mars. I
Yes.
understand where this commenter is coming from. I
Yeah.
just disagree with the comparison.
I disagree specifically with the Time Lord Victorious comparison because I feel like the
Yeah,
emotions from 15 and the reaction, the outcome is very different from Time Lord Victorious.
I completely agree. User Masterman M on the Doctor Who subreddit said, I got to spend an entire episode laughing at a girl not notice a massive problem just barely outside the bubble she's presented with. Then the end of the episode happened, and I realized I hadn't noticed the massive problem just barely outside what I was presented with. But honestly, it feels very clever that the entire episode is about privileged people being able to ignore very real problems just to miss the early signs of bigotry hidden throughout the episode. Like Lindy refusing to speak to the doctor at first and being shocked when he and Ruby were sat in the same room, or even missing the fact that everyone in the episode was white, or maybe that was just me.
Yeah, I agree that using that as a storytelling device was really effective and really makes this episode stronger. I will say I noticed everyone was white, but I didn't think anything about it. So,
Same.
but yeah, and then coming to the end and realizing what all this was going on, and I didn't put it together. And now going back and watching it and seeing, oh my gosh, there's so many lines and so many things she says where I'm just like, oh, she's just being like obnoxious and rude, and but no, it's
Yeah.
way worse than that.
Yeah. This last comment I will end on is a comment that made me laugh. And I know I've been hating on all the people. Okay, I know. But user AZIKT, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I think that's just random letters together. On the Doctor Who subreddit, said looking forward to the audio sequel where they all get killed in the jungle.
Big finish.
Big finish, come on.
Or the fan fiction writers, they're working hard.
Fanfic writers, rise up. Rise up just to kill these people off.
Your time has come.
We won't be mad at you this time for killing off characters.
What do you think the heart of this episode was? And it's kind of hard with this one.
I think the heart of this episode is to not stay in your bubble.
Mm-hmm. Be like Ricky. Go outside, touch some grass, read some history. Get out of your bubble. Don't be afraid. Learn how to walk.
And don't betray people who try to save you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think I know. I think we both have the same answer, but who's the star of this episode for you?
The doctor.
Yeah, the doctor is, but I'm going to go with Ricky September because justice for my man.
Yeah. Besides the doctor, Ricky September, 1000%.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all we got for you guys this week, but we will be back next week with Rogue.
Which is The last episode before the two-parter finale.
It's getting real, you guys.
It's getting real. I predict the end of Rogue. We're going to get something that will lead into the two-parter.
Oh, scary. We're finally going to find out who the heck Jonathan Groff is.
Yes, and I'm very excited. My Hamilton heart is very happy. And no, I will not hate on Hamilton. There's a hate trend going on. I will never hate something
I
during my
can't.
formative years.
Hamilton got me through some rough times.
Same. I still listen to it sometimes.
Yeah. Every 4th of July, I'm listening. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where we post reels, edits, and all other things at Timey Wimey Pod.
And feel free to email us your thoughts, comments, rants, fan edits, fan theories, anything and everything to timingwimeypod@gmail.com. Also, if you feel like you're in the mood to, rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And don't forget to follow us so you know when a new episode comes out.
And with all that said, we will talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.